Welcome, welcome, welcome to the PRiSM Podcast. We tell the stories that Hollywood won't. I'm your host, Rodrigo Mariano. Hope you're all doing well. Across from me is director Cameron Van Hoy, director of the movie Flinch, which came out on VOD formats and in drive-ins in the past few weeks or so. How are you doing today, Cameron? What's up with you? You're in LA County, just chilling? How is that?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. It's been snowing over the past week, something that doesn't really happen in Los Angeles. So.
Oh yeah, nice.
Been super
how are you enjoying the snow?
I mean, I don't mind it. I've been growing around it all my life, but it's funny seeing like people from Los Angeles going outside in the snow because it's so like new to them. Like, what's going on here? Like wearing the biggest coats imaginable, even though it's like just 30 degrees. Like that doesn't faze me personally as an East Coaster.
Yeah, I was born in California, Southern California, and when I was young in high school, I moved to New York, and I remember how cold it was, and I had to adjust, and it was a big adjustment getting used to the cold.
Yeah, where in New York did you go to high school?
LaGuardia.
LaGuardia? Oh,
Yeah.
Dope. So was that concentrated for the arts or was it just?
Yeah, LaGuardia is a high school for the arts in New York. Like New York has this really cool system. They've got 5 public schools that are specialized for students that you can like audition or apply or take a test to get into. I think it's LaGuardia is one. It's the high school for the performing arts. And then they have Stuyvesant, which is I think like science, math focused. Then they have Brooklyn Tech, technology focused. And they have Bronx Science, which is a science focused school. And then there's one more I don't remember. But yeah, so LaGuardia is like the one for the arts, and it's a cool school.
That's interesting that it's actually a public school rather than like privately owned or like a magnet charter school. It's great that New York is investing in the arts in that way through like the young generation. That's awesome.
It is amazing that New York does that. These schools have been around for a very long time. And, it's probably one of the reasons why New York has always had such an amazing community of artists. When you look back at some of the great American artists, so many of them come out of New York. And obviously the culture and the city plays a big part in it. But yeah, I know there's been a lot of fighting. I think Jerry Seinfeld went to the school, or at least he's a supporter of the school. So many people went, to school. But I remember Jerry Seinfeld, I think it was him, was frustrated because even from when I was there, they've slowly, like when I was there, it used to be half your day was for your art and the other half of your day was for your school. And that slowly has been like whittled away to where it's like mostly your school and then a little bit of your art from last I heard. And a lot of that upset a lot of people because they were like, oh, this is a place for young artists to just focus on their art, but I guess funding and a lot of things they've had problems and, but I mean, it's still great people come out of there. You still have all these wonderful talents coming out of the school. So it's a good thing.
Of course. Have you been watching anything good lately?
Have I been watching anything good lately? I watched that movie, The Little Things, with Denzel Washington, Jared Leto. And I liked it. I haven't been watching any shows lately. No, I think that was the last thing that I saw that I enjoyed really. And I can't remember anything that I watched last year that I really, really liked. What about you?
Yeah, nothing like too crazy, honestly. This year and last year have been pretty dry when it comes to what usually comes to the table when it comes to movies and like what's going on. That's obviously why the Academy had to push the deadline all the way to March instead of like the usual December 31st. But I mean, I watched Ma Rainey's Black Bottom last week and also The Vast of Night, both of which were like really, really, really great. So there is still a lot of stuff out there.
And Flinch, of course.
And Flinch, of course. I watched Flinch yesterday. And I have to say, it really, really is a gorgeous movie. Congratulations on the movie. Like, I love how you got the vibe of like noir LA in a way that I haven't seen since like Collateral. Like, that's so great.
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
But like, in preparation of this interview, I also watched Pups.
Oh, wow.
And like, honestly, dude, your performance in that movie is on par, if not like better than Haley Joel Osment's in The Sixth Sense. Like, it's actually incredible. Like, it's so hard to find good child actors. And the fact that you came onto the scene in that way is incredible. Like, how did that happen? You know what I mean? That's so crazy.
How did you see the movie?
It's on YouTube. The whole entire thing uncut, like 98 minutes. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. YouTube's amazing. I've always loved acting and filmmaking, and it's just always been my thing. When I was really young, I loved stage plays. I had a video camera, and it was just my thing. And I did theater after school because I liked it so much. And then the person who was in charge of that, was like, "Oh, you got to go to LA," because I was in San Diego, and so I got an agent, auditioned, and I did some things, and that movie was one of the things that I did before moving to New York to go to the high school for performing arts, and that's where I really got into the idea of being a director. But yeah, I just auditioned for it and did it.
I can't even fathom how you get a performance like that, like at that young of an age. Like, what do you even take from? Was it just like the script was just really good, therefore I am really good in this? Not anyone can do that. I hope you know that.
I think, I always loved performing. So even before I did that, I was doing tons of school plays and writing scripts and putting shows on with my neighbors. Like, I just was always into it, so I think I had a lot of practice from that. I loved acting and was always doing it. So I don't know, what makes a kid able to like draw better than another kid or sing better than somebody else. I guess It's a little bit of the natural spark and then practice.
What was that spark for you? Was there like a one thing that you could draw it all back from, like from the start of your passion for acting and for film in general?
Probably like just bringing joy to my family. More than anything, my mother more than anything, like putting on a show, entertaining people, getting them to smile. And then just the magic of the movies, the time that I came up or grew up, like movies were great. Movies are still great, At that era, movies were just so magical. You go to see a movie in the theater like Star Wars or like Hook. Like you had the Spielberg movies, you had the Lucas movies, you had like, it was just, and then like the 90s with like everything that happened then, like Scorsese, Tarantino, the Coen brothers, and like, it was just, a time, Jurassic Park, Rambo, like, there were so many movies that were just incredible, magic. And that inspired me. I loved it.
No, yeah, that's totally valid. Like, that's really the golden age of like blockbusters back then. It's so crazy.
Amazing.
Yeah, like literally like so much. Unbelievable.
Even the Academy Awards were amazing back then. Like, Billy Crystal hosting the Academy Awards back then was amazing. Like they were just so fun to watch. Like every aspect of Hollywood back then in like that period for me from like the 80s to the 90s, like through like 2000s was just real magic.
I know this is random, but like me and my friends were talking and I've had this argument in my head for like the past like year really, that The Lord of the Rings is kind of the peak of cinema in the way that it fuses the practical and VFX aspects of filmmaking in a way that is so grand and epic that it's like you could hold it holds up today still, but also it's just such a grand filmmaking that you don't really get anymore. You know what I mean?
That's an interesting thesis. There might be a lot of truth to it. It sounds instinctually correct.
That's what I keep telling people. I haven't heard a good argument against it.
Like, yeah, that might be correct. That might be the zenith, and everything is downhill from there. I mean, I hope that's not the case, and I don't think it is. But,
me either.
But I like where you're going with that.
Yeah, because after that, like, there's a way heavier reliance on like green screens and like blue screens.
After that, it was just the Marvel movies.
Yeah,
that's like all the Marvel stuff came in, and it just like blockbusters have changed.
Yeah. Rather than like building something from the ground up, everything is just based on an existing IP, and like it's all about the money now rather than creating something magical and inspiring other people, which is unfortunate. But
yeah.
So like after Pops, back to my written questions. How did your filmmaking journey go from there? You said you went to high school in New York. Did you ever want to pursue acting prior to that, past Pops, in a way that you did there, like playing protagonists and like doing lead roles as a child actor? Or did you go straight to high school thinking that, like, let me just get my education out of the way first and then figure something out down the line?
I always loved acting, and I still love acting. And after Pops, I went to New York to study acting. That is one of the reasons why I went there. I mean, my family wanted to go there for other reasons, but the school was there, and that was like something in it for me. And then when I was in New York, yes, I still wanted to be an actor. I wasn't pursuing it while I was in high school anymore. I wasn't auditioning. I wasn't doing any of that. I had a video camera. I was really into my video camera. And in New York is when I really got into watching movies. The Brooklyn Library was pretty close to me, and they would let me rent like 8 movies at a time or something. And I just rented everything from the Brooklyn Library. And that's when I started really getting into cinema. Mm-hmm. And I think like the first movie that really got me was Easy Rider. And I watched that movie so many times. I just loved it. I was just like, oh, this is a movie. And then from there, you start getting into like Italian cinema and Japanese cinema and French cinema. It just cascades, and start watching everything. And I just ate it up and loved it and really became a cinephile. And then after that, I was like, okay, I want to be a director. And I was leaving high school. I was like, I'm going to go to LA to become a film director. But I also still wanted to pursue acting. And I was like, I still want to act as well. So I came to LA and I started studying filmmaking at this place called the Art Institute. And then I started studying acting further at this acting school called Playhouse West. And so I was doing both of those and pursuing both of them. And I did a little bit more acting. I was on this TV show called Crash, and like I did a few films. And then I was also writing my own things and producing my own things. So I produced and wrote some movies that I acted in, which really ended up just being big learning experiences for me about filmmaking. Like I just, went and made a movie with money and people and learned a lot from it. And just like every time I did one of those movies, I got more like focused on what it takes to make a great film. And it just slowly over the years, filmmaking has won over to where that's just the thing that I ended up really just waking up in the morning and being like, I've got to write this script and I've got to get it right, or I've got to get the edit on this movie right, Mm-hmm. And that's kind of been my journey from Pups to now.
Well, what does being a producer look like, really? They say a lot of things about just doing logistics or like talking to a lot of people, but in your experience, what does that look like as a person who was actively a producer in films in Los Angeles, in the actual film industry?
It's, for me, it has always been out of the desire to make movies. So for me, it's been about finding a script and finding a director and putting together a cast and getting it made, getting it out there, getting it sold, right? And everything that I've produced, except for one movie, I have really started it from like the very beginning to the very end. You know, and I feel like there's two types of producers. There's that type of producer, like who really makes a film. I mean, nowadays, you know, the industry is so focused on directors, which is cool. So like the idea of, you know, like back in the, you know, like that's the reason why a producer wins the, you know, technically the Best Picture Academy Award goes to the producer.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it was a producer who would find a project, find a script. I mean, like, you know, find a director, put these things together and make a film. That's changed. And there still are those producers around, but it seems like there's a lot less of them. And now it's more just like, it really is a director's medium. And it seems, you know, like it takes 20 producers to get something made, to get a director's vision made. Mm-hmm. That's just kind of how that is. But yeah, that for me, it was making these films and also a learning experience. Like the reason why I didn't direct any of those early movies that I produced is because I didn't want to, I wanted to like learn. Yeah. I wanted to sit back and be involved but not be the face. And for me, there was also an opportunity to learn and really make mistakes, and learn from those mistakes without being the face of the mistakes.
Like what would a mistake look like that you would learn from?
So many, you know, like I mean, I've made so many mistakes along the way, from everything from bad distribution deals to the second act not working. You know what I mean? Like just like across the board. There's so many things that you learn by making films. Like it always blows my mind, you know, filmmakers who come out of the gate with like a masterpiece, like first one out, because there's so many things to learn. At least,
yeah,
you know, there's so, and it's like you learn by doing. But yeah, there's so many pitfalls, you know, along the way that you can step into. And also just like finding your voice, knowing your voice creatively, knowing the stories you want to tell and how you want to tell them and all that stuff too. Which is why I think it's good for filmmakers to make short films.
Yeah.
You know, because you can really play around there.
Yeah. And experiment, of course, with like your voice and everything. For you specifically, how would you define your voice? What do you gravitate towards when you're making a movie? And yeah, in addition to that, like, what are your influences when it comes to movies that have inspired you in your voice?
Yeah. I mean, there's two things that I really love. I love crime.
Yeah.
I love the crime genre. I love criminals. I love those characters. All my favorite movies are crime movies. I grew up around these types of people, so I really know these people well, and I like them. So I just love the genre, and I love the characters, and that's a big one. And I also do love humor. You know, I really like humor, and I always gravitate towards a little bit of humor. And I don't know if there's a ton of it in Flinch. I think it's most prevalent with the mother.
Yeah.
But I always try to find that. So those are two things that I really like. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, that totally answered my question. Obviously, the movies that you grow up watching are going to be a huge influence in like your voice and what you want to do. Yeah. So how did the idea of Flinch first come about, and why did you decide it was like the story you wanted to tell for your first feature? You were talking about how like you've already grown up around these people. So that lends itself to a lot of, write what you know, direct what you know.
Yeah. I knew I wanted to, well, I knew for my first film as a director, I wasn't going to have a ton of money to make it. So I knew I needed it to be fairly contained. It's something that I could pull off on a modest budget.
Mm-hmm.
So that was an important piece to begin with. And then I forget exactly how I came up with. I initially came up with these characters of the hitman and his mother, right? Like a hitman Elizabeth's mother, and I had just been kicking that around for a while, and then I came up with the concept of what happens if someone witnesses him, a woman who he likes, and he has to bring her back home to where he lives with his mother, and like what would happen with these people. And that's kind of where it started from. And that probably comes out of my relationship with my mother, which is a strong part of my life, strong relationship in my life. I was raised by a single mother. So I think that there's a lot there for me with those characters. And I think that's where like the germ of it comes from. And then it's just, and then I just wrote on it for a while and really, wanted to make sure that it was, just like grind out the like create a pace and create a mood and create a tone and twists and like keep it like moving like a roller coaster, always. And I knew I wasn't, like I would love to have like giant car chase scenes and like really massive shootouts, but I knew I wasn't going to have that on this first one. So it's like, I had to rely on characters and plot, which is great. That's what you should always rely on. And so like really like I spent a lot of time just plotting it and hammering it. And I ended up with the script I ended up with and made it,
Well, when did you make your first draft? I'm just curious. This long filmmaking journey.
I think I wrote a version of this movie before I went and produced Tragedy Girls.
Okay.
So I wrote a version of this with Joey and his mom, and then put it aside, went and made Tragedy Girls. That was a process and a journey. And then after that, I was like, all right, I've got to direct now. I'm done producing for other people. And so, I picked that script back up and finished it. And that was maybe like, Tragedy Girls took definitely 2 years from my life. And then I think it was probably like a solid maybe year of writing until we went and shot it on Flinch after I decided that was going to be the one. So
you just said you're like, after that movie, you're done with producing. Like, so why did you decide to pursue it directly after that movie? Was that always part of the plan when you initially wrote it, to finally direct right after Tragedy Girls?
I mean, I came out to LA to direct films. I just started writing and producing because I didn't want to direct right away. And after Tragedy Girls, I felt satisfied with the film. I felt like I had really understood what it takes to make a movie that is satisfying and that works. And I just felt ready. I felt ready to step away from producing. Plus, it's so much work when you're really producing. You're really just, and when you're doing it well, a good producer, they support a director, which I do. If I'm going to produce something, I'm going to give that director everything that they need and support them as a producer. And that's what really good producing is. And also supporting the film and knowing what the film needs, but like you really have to support a director. And that's just, it's so much work. I was like, I'm going to do this for myself. I know how to produce now. I'm good at this.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a movie. So I'm going to do it for myself. It's time to go direct, and I wouldn't ever produce again for anybody else unless I really loved them as a director. You know what I mean? Like, because it is so much work. And if you're doing it right, you are supporting that director and that vision. So,
yeah, 100%. And congrats on Tragedy Girls for grinding that whole entire thing out. Yeah, we were talking about it earlier, how I currently work at that distributor, Gunpowder and Sky, and
yeah,
that's just a little fun connection that we made right before starting to record this.
yeah.
But coming back to Flinch, like, how did you ensure you were creating something different than other like trite and rote hitman stories in the same vein?
Yeah. I mean, I thought about that a lot. I thought about that so much, and I feel like everyone's so obsessed with being different now because things have been done so much. We're at this point in popular culture where we're kind of like, even if you look at music, we're taking old songs and just like sampling them.
Yeah.
Like putting a fresh spin on it. And the same is true in art. So many artists are just taking other images and putting a fresh spin on them. Or like I think it's art, but like a lot of videos on YouTube are just taking old images and videos and putting fresh spins on them and retelling stories with older things. So it's kind of a weird place. Like contemporary art is very much so just taking from the past and spinning on it. And is that because everything's been done? I have no idea. So like, I'm sitting around thinking like, okay, well, how do I make this different and fresh and original? And, but yet it's still like a story that I really liked. And I felt like, okay, well, I felt like the hitman living with his mom is pretty fresh. Like I've never seen that before. Never really seen that before. And at the time and I still am really into it, but at the time, I've really been into this genre of music called Synthwave, right? Which is just the aesthetic, which is kind of having like a resurgence, even though it's very much so from the 80s. And it feels like a lot of these films that like Michael Mann made. But there's like something about Synthwave, which is fresh, but also old, which is also like an interesting thing about, I feel, contemporary art nowadays. When you look at a lot of the music that's happening and even a lot of the film, there's this like throwback vibe that's happening, which was something that I really wanted to play with, which I thought was fresh, but yet also like, poster fell down. So, how do I put it? Like comfortable, like there, like a desire for something old, like a desire for the old days when things were simpler. I feel like Synthwave speaks to that in a big way. And I feel like that's a vibe that a lot of people have, and something that I have. And then also like the twist at the end of the film was also an attempt to really try to give this something original and fresh that no one had seen before and that no one would expect. And so far, I haven't met anyone who's caught the twist to the film, which is a good thing.
Yeah, no, I didn't think of it before it actually unfolded in front of my eyes. And I do think it was really well done twist. Like sometimes you watch movies and the twists totally break the movie. Twists are such a make and break thing. So like when it came to making that twist in general, like how did you justify it in your head without going into spoilers, of course, and why did you think you needed to make a twist in the first place?
Well, the early drafts, look, I mean, one of the reasons why I wanted it was for that reason. Like, how do I make this fresh? How do I make sure this is not just something we've seen a million times before and make it original and fresh and all of those things, right? So that was a big part of going with the twist, but I discovered the twist while writing it. I didn't have the twist always. I discovered it. And when I discovered it, I was like, oh, this is great. And then the reason I kept it was because I was like, oh, this is wonderful. You know what I mean? Like you're sort of going through this whole thing and no one's going to see it coming.
Yeah.
So that's why, that's why I did it.
Did you think about pups a lot while making this movie at all? Out of curiosity?
No.
Like personally, seeing them as like a double feature, I was like, these both have like common threads of what happens when you put a person in a position where they feel like forced to close a loose end. And like, especially when it comes to like violence and also like those sort of themes. So I was just curious as to if you were thinking about that movie at all while you're creating your first directorial movie.
Yeah, no, I wasn't. I think, if anything, I think the reason I was cast in Pups is the same reason why I made this movie. Is like I said, I know these people. You know, I grew up around tough people, so I was able to play them. And I'm able to write them and portray them. So yeah, you know,
yeah,
these stories gravitate towards me.
Yeah, 100%. That's a perfect way of putting it. I also like really respect the fact that you not only directed this script, but you also wrote it as well. Like, was there like, I don't know how to explain it, but being a writer and director of a product is way, way different than directing someone else's thing because it feels way more personal. Like, just like detail what it takes to be like a writer director in this day and age, and also like how it feels, especially directing from that stance, how it's different from directing another person's screenplay.
Yeah. I mean, I've never directed anyone else's screenplay, so I don't really know what that's like, but it's got to be amazing if someone brings you an absolutely incredible script and you get to direct it. That's got to be incredible, you know? You think about great directors like Oliver Stone comes to mind. I mean, that guy has directed, he's a great writer himself, and he's also directed wonderful films from scripts written by other great writers. When you're writing, it's all on you. You're writing and directing. It's your vision. It's your story. And that's great, but you really got to own it. And that's actually one of the biggest takeaways that I have from Flinch is just really like trusting yourself.
Yeah.
You know, like you really have to trust your voice, the story you want to tell, how you want to tell it, the choices you're making along the way, the characters you're just own it and trust it, like, which I did on this film, and I'm ready to do it even more on the next one. Because like after this, I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm even more confident in the choices that I want to make, and there's a talent in that. That doesn't come easy. Most people don't trust their instincts, you know, and it's a fine line between because rewriting is so important as a writer, and I rewrite like crazy. You know, I'm just constantly like when I'm writing, it's insane because I'm like, it goes on forever. I'm like rereading, thinking, and changing, you know. And there's like a fine line between like perfecting and refining and second guessing. And you can't second guess yourself too much, but you got to perfect and refine, you know? So that's knowing the difference between the two is a skill.
Would you say that you're going to write and direct all your projects going forward? Really?
Oh, I'm down to direct someone else's script. I probably am not down for anyone else to direct my scripts though, only because, I mean, that's not like, who knows, you know, like, but I feel like if I ever have a script that is just absolutely rock solid, which I have one now that I'm just in love with, I don't want anyone else to direct it. I'm a director. I know how to do it. I wrote it, you know. We have a script now that some people try to get, they're like, oh, we can get a big director. No, I want a big director to direct it. I'll direct it. I will know how to crush this script. I wrote it. That's why you like it, because I know what to do with this thing. And then if I don't feel like that about a script, I don't really know that anyone should be directing it. You know, like unless you really care about a script and you're like, this fucking thing is ready for the world. Like, I don't want to direct it. I don't think anyone else should direct it. You know, so that's the only conundrum. But I would totally direct someone else's script. If there was a script that was phenomenal, that I just loved, and I had the opportunity to direct it, or even that I felt like I could do something cool with it, you know, then yeah, I'd be down. So.
Yeah, I was just thinking from the point of view of like screenwriters that it must be always an experience to see your work being picked apart so much by a director and like shifting in ways you wouldn't expect, whether that be in a good way or a bad way. Like I feel like there's so much freedom in being a writer director and having that trust in your instincts, like you said. It's definitely the best place to be when it comes to handling a baby of that sort. Like,
yeah. Look, this business, everyone's picking everyone's work apart. That's what it is. Everyone's sitting around picking everyone else's work apart. You got to know what to listen to and not.
Yeah. So when it came to this movie from a visual standpoint, did you always how did you find your style? Because Flinch definitely has a very specific style in the way that it paints LA, paints this culture. It is honestly like super consistent and super enthralling to see it unfold. Was this style and tone something that you always saw when you were making the screenplay? And from the beginning when you first conceived this movie?
Well, yeah. I knew, huge parts of the vibe is the city of LA, the cinematography, the music, the performances, right? Which is like the tone of those performances. Those things really help to shape the vibe. And I knew I wanted Miami Nights 1984 to score the movie from before I made it. I didn't know Kai Saul up until I was looking for a DP to work with. And God bless that guy. I'm so glad I found him.
Seriously, incredible.
Incredible. Everyone else, we assembled a great team, the actors, the composer, Kai, our sound designer, Jeff. Everyone's really great. But I knew I wanted a zoom lens. That was big. I wanted to use a zoom lens and use it subtly. There's a lot of stuff I knew I wanted to. I knew I wanted to juxtapose tight shots with really big shots. I would go around LA location scouting, filming a lot of shots with my phone, the way I wanted to film. Just like the vibe of the movement of the camera and all that stuff, the neon cross, that was in the script, like this neon cross that I wanted. I knew I wanted to do most of the movie at night.
Yeah.
Which sets a huge part of the tone. And I was like, I got to do most of this. It's a nighttime movie. This movie's going to happen mostly at night, which is a big part of it. And then that's there's like the foundational stuff of what I'm going for and what I want. And then you work with a great DP like Kai, and then you really get into it. And and again, it's obsessive. Like, I'm literally showing him shots from movies and music videos and old commercials. Like, okay, look at this shot and look at how this happens and look at what,
Yeah.
And we're just going in and he's doing the same and he's pulling images from Seven and all these places. Like, look at these colors and look at the tone of the colors here and look at the way the light is and look at what, and you're just refining and figuring it all out. So that's how we got the look of it. And then also just like really being relentless about shooting in LA and shooting a lot in LA. Like, this movie wasn't supposed to have as many locations as it had, but I just kept wanting to like follow the car as it drives and like follow him as he walks and see him walking there and then pull out to reveal a city there as he gets into a car and then be in the car and go with him there and then be up on top of a building. You're getting shots where like spending a day just like going on top of buildings and setting up the camera and like just zooming in on someone as they walk down the street, and like following them as they walk. When, if you don't have time, which we didn't have time, or if you don't care to push the amount of time you have or whatever, you're knocking that off in a minute. You know, you're like, okay, character goes from here to there. Let's just, you know, you could do that one shot, like just walk with them behind them, or, you know what I mean? Like set the camera across the street and walk to where you got to go, or like look, the car drove past there's, you know, but no, I wanted to like push in on the car in traffic, and like, we, you know, like we rented, and we're doing this stuff without the big rigs that, you know, you normally have for a larger production, because again, I shot a much bigger movie than I should have on my budget. So like we're doing things like renting a van. We rented a van and just opened the side door of the van and like latched it, and then put the camera in.
Damn.
So we could like have the car driving and have him come up, you know, and like, and then drive away. And like just get all the types of shots that you want to just give it a vibe, you know? And I wish I could have done more. I have so many more shots that I wanted for all of these sequences. But, you know, sometimes if you're doing a shot, like you want to just like zoom in on buildings as like the cars going, then zoom in on the cars. Like that would take me another day just to get that, which is going to end up in the movie for, you know, a couple seconds.
Yeah.
And that day costs, you know, however many thousands of dollars, and you're just at a point, you know, couldn't go all the way, but like, it's just that, you know, it's just knowing the vibe, and like, it's cinema, you know what I mean? It's telling a story visually and creating a mood, and not just like, okay, character goes from here to there, you know?
Yeah. Well, when you're making a movie, you're like, on a schedule, like you were saying, and on a budget, how do you make sure it's perfect in the way that you want it to be, so that it doesn't like compromise your vision?
Well, nothing is ever perfect. But having an attitude of having a relentless attitude and knowing how to work with large groups of people is important, because you have to get a large group of people to work well and fast, which is tough, because let me tell you, the culture on sets is not to work fast and tough. I'm not talking against them or anything, but like there is a culture, I think it's created by union rules that cater to a pace that can only get you a great movie if you've got $10 million or more. Right?
Yeah.
But like that, like you need to do it to make a great indie film. You need like 30 people that are ride or fucking die, ready to kill, you know? And like, how do you get people there?
Exactly.
I was lucky again to have those people, and it's like a trickle down. It's a trickle down. You know, we were blessed. Our crew had it, but they also felt it. They felt it from me. They felt it from Kai. You know, like the department heads infuse it into the team, and then like, you know, and everyone's like, all right, we got to pull a little harder, and we got to work a little quicker to get this shot, to make our day. And, you know, and then they start seeing what you're doing, and they're like, oh, okay, like I'm on board, you know, like, and most of the people that are doing this are doing it because they care. Yeah. Because they love movies, you know. But it's easy to fall into an attitude of like this lazy, fucking I'll move the sandbag when I want to move it type of thing. Like, you know, and that no one makes a good movie that way. So you got to really know how to work with people and with crew. And then you just have to like be absolutely relentless, because when everything's falling apart and everyone's exhausted and your day's over, you have to fight to get more. You know?
Yeah. So when it came to like creating that team, specifically the cast, how did you go about casting? Did you seek out people at all, or was it mostly auditions?
No, I sought people out mostly. I sought out Buddy Duress. I wanted him.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted him. After I saw him in Good Time, I was like, this guy is
incredible.
He's incredible. Yeah, it's incredible. And then I sought out Zovatto as well. I was looking for someone who, I saw Buddy in Good Time, and I was like, that dude needs to play a villain in a crime movie that I make. and I wanted him to play a rich villain. Now, like, he's always with the softies, been this like from the streets type of dude. And I was like, yo, that guy would be amazing in a Ferrari. Like that guy would be amazing with.
You're so right. Holy shit.
Like, just give that guy a lot of power, and he is a force of nature. And so I really just was like, okay, he's got to play James. With Zovatto, I wrote Joey, and I was like, okay, I need a young actor who is going to come play with me on this, because it's a smaller film and I'm a first-time director, and it's, it's a genre movie. So like it is, it's that can be tough, everyone's like, oh, what have you, so I was like, okay, so I need a really good actor who's going to trust me to do this, who I believe can play a killer, and who has everything that I wanted in Joe. I wanted him to be cool, but really brooding, and like have tons of emotion, and fucking be raw, and have like, but also be a movie star. I wanted him to be like a Chow Yun Fat, I wanted him to I wanted to find like that guy, for my first film to play this hitman. And most of the young actors out there don't have that, in my opinion. You've got all these young actors that, I don't know, like they're doing all these like teeny bopper Netflix shows. And like, these are the people who have like, like the quote unquote, like value and all. But like they're fucking, you blow on them and they fall over. You know what I mean? Like they're not they're not tough. You know what I mean? Like I needed somebody who's genuinely like tough and who can act. Just tough to find. There's a lot of tough dudes in Hollywood who want to act, but I needed a tough guy who was also an actor, who had soul.
Oh yeah.
And that's Zovatto. So and I found Zovatto by just searching, just watching movies and searching the young actors, and like and then I found him. I'd seen It Follows, and he's really good in It Follows, but like from watching It Follows, you wouldn't know how incredible he is. But then I was like, oh, he's Lady Bird, and then I watched him in this HBO show that he was in, Here and Now, which he's amazing in that show. And then I was like, okay, this guy, he's got the chops. And then I met with him, and like meeting with somebody, you can sort of tell. And I was like, this guy's it. And then Tilda was brought to me by his agent. His agent, who's just a great agent, has great clients. It's like, hey, I've got this girl, and she was perfect. She's really just perfect. She felt like a character out of a noir movie to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like this old. She has this classic beauty and this classic movie star look to her that feels like the 40s. And like the 40s and the 90s are those two eras of crime cinema that I was really going after for Flinch. And then she's also a phenomenal actress. So I was like, okay. And then Kathy, I wanted her for the mom. And then the rest of the cast, working with the casting director to find them. And my buddy, who's one of my best friends and just an incredible actor, is Michael Dreyer.
Mm-hmm.
Who plays Connor in the movie. And I knew I wanted him to be in it. So you just cast it. You just yeah.
So just like send the script over, like hopefully they say yes.
Yeah. Buddy said yes right away. I mean, they all kind of said yes right away, but you send the script. I mean, I was lucky that Zovatto came on first. He was the first one I went to. And then once Zovatto was on, Zovatto in a combination with the script got everybody else. Everyone, because every actor was like, oh yeah, I want to work with Zovatto because he's good.
Yeah.
And he's got that street cred. So yeah.
Yeah, but like for me, Buddy was definitely the standout. Like
yeah, the way that you utilized him was incredible, and obviously his performance that came out of it just really does him justice in the way that exactly you were describing, like the whole entire, what if this guy wasn't actually a place of power? Like he's unhinged. Like that was great to just watch. He's so talented. I hope he like goes places. He's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, he is.
So I wanted to ask about like directing action. So I'm guessing this was your first foray actually doing something of that sort. And in the third act, it sort of becomes like a big shootout. Did you ever have like any dip in confidence when it came to like directing something that has that much motion and stuff? Because I personally would be intimidated by even like tackling a scene like that.
Yeah, it's a thing for sure. And, you know, everyone always obsesses over how you get a performance out of an actor or how you maintain a consistent tone, which maintaining a consistent tone is an art. And so is getting a performance out of an actor.
Yeah.
Or just supporting, you know, all of those things are also, but man, action is an art. It's an art. You need money and time. It takes time. So, you know, I knew I didn't have either of those two things. So the way that I got my action to work, which I think it works for this film, is one, I was insistent on shooting full load blanks on all the guns. We didn't CGI any muzzle flash.
Wow.
Right? Because I just knew that, you know, just you shoot a fucking gun. Like there's power in that. So like I'm gonna capture that on screen. I'm not gonna put fucking fake muzzle flash, which I hate because I can always tell. So that was one of my just big things is that, and also real squibbing. No fake blood. You know, they do this now, the CGI, the blood, like, you know, like the thing.
Yeah.
No. Squib. We're going to do this practically, right? So just doing real practical effects for the shootouts, especially in the beginning of the movie and then in the end of the film. The beginning of the movie, I knew I was going to blow my load, so to speak, more so at the end, just from a production standpoint, money and time.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, in the beginning, I'm like, and just from a production standpoint, I'm like, okay, if I have, which by the way, like I think at first I was supposed to do the opening scene in a shootout in a day and the final shootout scene in 2 days, which just did not happen. I ended up doing the opening shootout scene in a total of maybe 2 to 3 days because I had to just keep going back. And I think I ended up with, I was supposed to do it in 1 day. I forced to get 2 days. And then in the edit, I went back and got myself more shots in a third day. And then on the final shootout scene, I was supposed to do it in 2 days. And I think I went back like 4 times to get what I needed, you know, and I just kept going into the editing room, just being like, I need more. I need this. I need that, you know, and just rallying the team and going back. And, and yeah, we practically did everything, like all the, you know, like when Doyle's coming around corners and like the walls are getting shot, like those are real squibs with these great guys, just pros come in, squib everything and build vases and walls and blood packets and pillows and everything that's getting shot is really getting shot. And I think that does a lot for it. And then, you know, and then we had a great stunt performer who came and did that stunt like on the staircase. And I love that stuff, you know, like I want to go so much further with that stuff as a filmmaker. When I was young, I always loved it. I loved when I was a kid in Southern California, we'd go to a place called Knott's Berry Farm and they had a show there. It was this Wild West show and I loved it. You know, like they would put on a show and the cowboys would come out And then one guy would like fall off the roof, he'd shoot him and he'd fall and they're shooting real blanks there. It's not like these guys are shooting real, probably quarter load blanks at each other and they're tumbling off the scene, and I loved that. When I would watch that, and like that, just putting on a show like that is so magical. So I tried to do that, but I mean, I learned a lot, and I watched a lot and tried to take what I could, but it's just really tough to do without money and time.
Yeah.
Especially time. And time is money, but you need
time.
It takes time because everyone's got to look at the gun and make sure it's safe, and re-squibbing takes an hour or longer, and like resetting everything to, you only get like 2 takes sometimes because you can't squibs.
Oh yeah. Right. That's a lot of pressure.
Squibs for the day. How do you want to use them? I'm like, all right, well, we're going to one there. That stuff just takes time. So you need time. I would love to spend months shooting action sequences, I can't wait to go there. You know what I mean? And really just have fun with it.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful perspective, because you see so many people just dismiss the fact like, oh, action doesn't really take anything to do. Like people who aren't in the position of like a director or someone who knows like what it takes to make film. Like people just love dismissing action as something that is flimsy and like interchangeable. And it's great to hear your perspective on it, like as an art.
It has become flimsy because so much of it has been CGI'd. Like when you watch these, I hate to keep ripping on them because there are some great ones, but the Marvel stuff, and I just use Marvel as like this blanket term for the big budget blockbusters of today. It's like so much of that action stuff is just literally all done on a computer.
Yeah.
Just flying around and hitting each other and just like, and it's incredible. You watch it and you're like, oh, it's like, but there's also just something to be said about that old school John Woo action,
Yeah.
Which you don't see much of anymore, where people are shooting real fucking blanks and hitting each other and getting hurt and like jumping out of windows and falling downstairs. Like the guy who fell down the staircase in our movie, God bless that guy, because there's this wrought iron staircase and like these sharp edges, and his head like got caught in it. If you watch, his head like goes in and hits and like somehow like comes out. I thought he was about to get tangled up. And he was bleeding on, and I was like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "I'm fine, man." He's like, "I'm fine." Like that's a stunt performer.
Yeah.
But like that's an artist. That's like I remember learning about some of these artists back in the day. It blew my mind. Like there was this one artist. What was his name? He did this thing where like he nailed himself to a van and drove around,
Yeah.
Called it art. And then he had his buddy shoot him with a gun, and like he shot himself in the leg, and this is a thing they study in art school.
Yeah.
Like as this is real art,
Oh yeah. There's performance art.
Yeah,
similar to that.
Maybe
I forgot what it is.
I'm sure it is, or like, fuck, that stunt guy is a fucking artist. What he's doing, he's falling, like that is art, and so there's something raw. There's like, it's just something fun when it's raw.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like the best filmmaking is definitely practical, and harks back to those old days when people actually built shit and like did things from a grounded standpoint rather than relying on like VFX and all of that. Yeah. But just to start like wrapping it up, I just want to ask, like, how did you approach marketing for this movie? And when the pandemic did start, what was your first thought as regards to like how this film will be distributed?
Yeah. So I've done something really cool with this movie is I have released it myself and marketed it myself.
Yeah.
So every other movie I've done before this, I've sold or licensed. And the truth is all of those deals bone independent filmmakers. They're not in favor of independent filmmakers. They take these like licensing deals for years and years and years, and then they charge their fees on top, and then they charge their marketing, and then they run up their market. Like it's just, filmmakers really get screwed, especially independent filmmakers, in distribution. And it's just like a known thing that no one talks about in the industry.
That's interesting.
And like they should really teach this to kids at film school more. Like, so I've been through it a few times, you know, and there's two aspects. There's domestic and international distribution. And it's like, you know, fuck that. Like I put my blood, sweat, and tears in these movies, and these people come along and they don't put their blood, sweat, and tear into marketing it, which marketing is an art. And you want to talk about contemporary art, like really contemporary art, in my opinion, is the era of marketing. No disrespect to any of the great contemporary artists, but a lot of it is like dots on a fucking wall. You know, like what makes someone blowing their nose paint on the canvas great art? To me, it's marketing, you know, and the people who marketed that to get where it is. And I mean, even if you look at like musicians like Nas X and stuff, you know, like that's a catchy fucking song. The way that kid marketed that song.
Yeah, no, really, I saw incredible.
You know? Like, so there's really something about marketing as an art form now with art that it's just so huge. And so, like, speaking of music, you know, like you see all these musicians that drop songs nowadays themselves onto a place like Spotify, and you know, they do it without labels, and everyone comes listening. Why can't filmmakers do that? You know, like why can't you do that and own your song, own your film, and use the internet for the power that it has? And plus, I was looking at what these other distributors are doing. And it's no different than what anyone else can do. Only you just need a little startup capital. And I mean, there's things that they have that gives them a little bit of extra power, but it's being democratized because of technology. Because anyone can get their movie onto iTunes now.
Yeah.
Anyone can get their movie onto Amazon now. Anyone can get their film out to people. And you know, and like anyone can run ads. Like, you know, fuck billboards. You know, like billboard. The ads are on Instagram and Facebook now. That's where everyone is, especially everyone's driving around looking at billboard. Like, you know, like that's been cut. So I was just like, you know what? I can do a better job of this myself. So I convinced my investors to do this, and it's just been incredible because we brought on, and then, you know, the pandemic hit. And we're like, oh wow, okay, well, what, you know, like, what are we going to do? Like, how are we going to approach this? And it just so turned out that like theaters needed movies, you know, and it just so turned out that people still wanted to go to movies, but they were really going to drive-ins. So we just started moving into drive-ins, and the drive-in showings kept getting filled, and more drive-ins would take us, and it just continued to steam, you know, just grow. And then, and the same has been true like digitally. Like we've been, and I think we've done a better job than most do online with our campaigns. And like we're kind of just getting started, really. And you know, like if you Google the movie right now, if you Google best movies of 2021, Flinch shows up.
Oh my God. Wow, that's amazing.
Right? How incredible is that? We're showing up with these, literally it's like 4 Netflix movies and 2 HBO movies and Flinch. Like that is one of probably the most Googled terms for anyone trying to find a film. And how did we get that? You know, like we're not paying for it. You know, like that's just happened because people now can search and find things and learn about things and watch and listen to what they want to listen to. And so I've just had that vibe. Like this, it's like, for me, like, you know, like there's always been this independent spirit of like, go make your own movie and like go to a film festival and release it. But like, even that is not independent anymore. Like if you look at the festivals now, they're really championing Netflix movies. And it's like they're championing. Yes, they are championing. They're championing the big movies made by Blumhouse, and I love these companies. Don't get me wrong, but like, it's not the independent spirit that it used to be. And there's a monopoly on this distribution thing. Yet tech has democratized it. So I'm like, yo, like the independence is in releasing your film yourself now and going right to your own audience, and also then owning your film. Moving forward. You know what I mean? Like so many filmmakers make their movie, they kill themselves, and then they give it away, and they see nothing from it ever again. And they have no say in it after that. So that doesn't seem wise to me. So I've decided to do it this way, and it's working.
Honestly, like that's super inspiring. Like, not only did you take the model of like create your own opportunities when making this movie, but when it came to the distribution and marketing of it, like the fact that you did that, when like I feel like the vast majority of people here would not think of ever doing that, is crazy to me.
That's the future of independent filmmaking. When people were like, oh, anyone can make a movie with a camera, we've all had cameras for fucking 20, 30 years now. You know what I mean? Like the Blair Witch Project, how old was that movie? Like that era of anyone can make a movie is over. We've all made a movie. Everyone makes movies all the damn time. You know, like the real independence now is release your movie yourself. You know?
Yeah.
That's the future of independent film, in my opinion.
That was such a great answer. Like that totally changed my whole entire perception of like the distribution model and all of that, because you're right. Like half of the movies that A24 distributes, they kill them. They kill like, and they champion like 5 a year when they actually release like 20 a year. No one hears about any of the other ones ever again, like, because they just drop them. Like they drop them on a streaming service or like PVOD, and then it's like gone. Like no one hears about it ever again. It may have like a big star too. They just like drop it.
Yeah. And there's no reason you can't put your movie on a PVOD service.
Yeah, no
difference between you putting it on. You might have a little bit more bucks to run some guys than you. That's it.
Yeah, but these filmmakers.
It's your creativity. How are you going to market it? Like we made a VHS out of the movie. We put the movie on VHS because the movie feels like a 90s movie, right?
That's genius.
We ran out of VHSs. The VHS sold out already. You know, so it's like, how are you going to? And that's the creativity. That's the fun. And it's fun. It's fun. It's part of the filmmaking process. How are you going to market it? What does your art look like? Oh my God, I can't tell you the arguments I've had over the years on other movies with distributors about what the poster is going to look like. Where they're like, oh, the poster's got to look like this. We need this and this. It's like, fuck out of here. Shit poster. The poster sucks. No one wants to see that poster. That's what the poster needs to look. You know what I mean? Like, you're making a film, like, you know, that for me, it's like that's part of the process of making it, how the world sees it, what the trailers look like, what the Instagram account looks like, all of that stuff. It's all part of it to me. So that's what we've done, and I'm very excited to be doing it.
Well, thank you so much for everything. Everyone watch Flinch. It's on VOD services everywhere. I watched it on Amazon. Where could they follow you? What are your social handles, Cameron?
Yeah, follow the movie at Flinch Movie on Instagram. Facebook, it's Facebook.com/Flinch Movie. I'm at Cameron Van Hoy on Instagram. And my company is at Ardor Pictures.
Well, thank you so much, Cameron. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being here, talking to me on a Wednesday night. Like, thank you so much. I've learned so much, and I hope our base takes a lot from this as well, because you really have some great insight into not only the film industry now, but like really the future of what we should do as young filmmakers who create our own opportunities and champion the fact that we do. Well, that's a wrap on the PRiSM Podcast. I'm your host, Rodrigo Mariano. Follow my socials at DragonsFo, and of course at PRiSM Media Official on Instagram. Thanks for watching, and see you guys next time.
Peace.